What's good everyone on YouTube? It's me again, back with another video, and as you probably noticed, yes, I wore the same outfit for 3 videos because I filmed them all in one go. I've got to keep that backlog up. But today we're going to be talking about another shoe, and we're going to be doing it from a afterwear review perspective. And to be fair, I only ever actually wore this shoe out once, but I wore it for a full day, and actually, even just after that one day, I have quite a lot to say about this particular shoe. So we're going to be doing an after 1 day of wear review. That's my package. Wowee! Love me a good delivery. Just got this hoodie. Changing outfits now actually. So just going back to what I was saying, we're going to be doing an after 1 day review on a pair of Hush Puppies actually. And from what I understand, Hush Puppies aren't exactly like a brand that most people think about. Like, they end up at outlets a lot of times. They're just sort of this discount brand that no one really talks about. But for those dancers out there, especially poppers, you guys may know that Hush Puppies are kind of like the secret weapon of any good popper, I would say. You watch some of the highest level poppers and they're always rocking some form of Hush Puppies. And there are a lot of fakes out there that have been made to replicate the classic Hush Puppies look just because they don't manufacture the Hush Puppies in that exact form anymore. But there are a lot of people who actually just collect these vintage Hush Puppy shoes. And the Hush Puppies I'm talking about specifically are like the Bernard Oxfords. And actually Hush Puppies UK, back in 2018 or something like that, they had a decade collection going on. And they actually released a bunch of Hush Puppies that kind of look like the classics from back then. So, me being a popper, or trying to be one, I actually ended up picking up like 3 of them. And this is the one I've actually worn in battle once before. So this is the Bernard Oxford 50s or something like that. I'll figure it out later. After 1 day of wear. So yeah, let's just get into the shoe itself. So this is what it looks like. So very sort of classic in the shape of this like toe box area and just the paneling itself. And after 1 day of wear, because it's a white midsole and because I danced in them, we've got some markings on the midsole itself. The outsole has got a little bit of wear on it, and actually that's probably going to be something I mentioned in the cons. The upper itself, because it's all black, you don't really notice much. However, because I like to W-sit a lot in my dance, we've got some marking on the suede on the inside of the shoe. And along the piping, it's got this sort of like plastic finish, and that's actually started to crease quite a bit. So overall, I would say after 1 day of wear, it's got quite a bit of markings on it, which is a little worrying, but we'll get into my pros and cons of this shoe right now. So the first pro for this shoe for me is actually just the weight of the shoe. So despite the fact that it looks kind of like a dress shoe, and most dress shoes are quite heavy, especially with this sort of like thicker midsole, outsole sort of setup, it's actually quite a lightweight shoe. I mostly attribute it to the fact that the midsole outsole setup is actually quite a low density foam, so it really doesn't add much weight to it. And the upper itself is actually quite thin, which can be considered a con in some ways, but for the sake of weight, it's actually extremely good. This shoe never felt like it was weighing me down in any way. I felt like I could move quite dynamically with this shoe. So that would be my first pro for this shoe. Just the weight itself is actually very manageable and very appreciated actually. My second pro for this shoe is actually the stepping comfort for this shoe. So alongside this sort of low density foam that they've used in the midsole outsole setup, apparently this is their 0G technology. I'm not exactly sure what they use, but it's quite a nice foam. The insole itself is actually quite thick and quite padded, and it's got this nice little raised section in the heel where it's a little bit more padded. So the impact protection on this shoe is actually really nice. And for the sake of dancing, it's actually quite good. And that would be my second pro for this shoe. Just overall really decent cushioning. My third pro for this shoe would actually be the material choices on the upper, more for aesthetic reasons. So a lot of people these days have Hush Puppies that are mostly just like suedes or like very classic materials. But this particular rendition for the Decade collection actually decided to utilize some really interesting materials. So on the toe box and the heel, we do have the classic suede, but then on the toe, toe guard I meant. On the toe box, we actually have a velvet, and the velvet has a really nice effect in the light and also just feels quite nice. And because the toe box is velvet, it actually creases quite nicely, so there's no weird like toe cutting or anything like that. And then for the eyelets itself, we've actually got this pony hair, and again, for a shoe that's supposed to be just kind of like triple black on the top, these added layers of materials actually give it a lot of dimension when you look at it in different lights. And you know, for the sake of the toe box, it's actually really good functionally as well. So that would be my third pro for this shoe, just interesting material choices. Now I get into my cons for this shoe. So my first con for this shoe would actually just be the traction itself. So like the two main issues I have with this traction is that it's actually really squeaky on smooth floors. I feel like squeakiness is a running theme in a lot of the shoes I've reviewed. But yeah, this shoe has a really unusual high-pitched squeaking. To be fair, it only happens if you shuffle really fast, but when you do, it's probably the loudest squeak I've ever heard on any shoe, even worse than a Jordan 1. But it doesn't happen too often, so I'm not going to hold that much to it. However, I will say because the foam continues on from the midsole to the outsole, the durability really is not there. So as you can see, it's actually chewed up quite a bit already, and I've only worn this shoe once. So in terms of long-term durability, I really don't see this shoe lasting a very long time. And that's why, you know, I don't really find myself wearing this to walk around. I'll try and save this specifically for a dance situation or a competition situation, because I feel like the fact that we've already got foam almost falling off at the heel and at the toe just doesn't really bode well for the rest of the life of this shoe. So that would be my first con for this shoe, the outsole setup itself, like the lack of rubber. My second con for this shoe, and this is more of just like a historical accuracy thing, is the lack of like the classic shape. And this is more specific to the midsole itself. So a lot of the classic Hush Puppies had a very sort of emphasized heel and a pretty thin forefoot, very much like a typical dress shoe. And that sort of was like the iconic silhouettes and shape that everyone was kind of going after. And honestly, when they came out with this decade collection, they could have had a really big hit on their hands had they made the outsole setup pretty much identical. Now, granted, I think that would have affected the comfort, because the 0G foam seems to be quite nice in this setup, and I don't think it would work as well if there was like a gap in between with like a massive heel. But they've sort of sacrificed the overall aesthetic of this shoe by kind of giving it an almost kind of like a sneaker outsole, which kind of loses the dressiness of this shoe. But this is more of a specific like, I guess popper thing, because I wanted to kind of look like those classic Hush Puppies from like yonder. But that's still a con in my opinion, considering that like if they had just changed the shape a little bit, they could have had like an exact one of one, and I think it would have been an absolute hit on their hands. But yeah, that would be my second con for this shoe, just historical inaccuracy to the classic model. Geez, really stretching it. My third con for this shoe would actually be the creasing on this shoe. So while I mentioned that the velvet is quite nice and doesn't really have a problem when it comes to creasing, the piping that runs along where the suede and velvet meet, it's sort of this really cheap plastic rubbery material, and that has held a lot of memory when it comes to the creasing, and it's kind of ruined the toe box shape a little bit, so now it's a lot more wobbly and weird looking, and it doesn't have that nice clean toe box shape that everyone sort of like desires when they first get this shoe. It's inevitably going to happen, but I'm taking this into consideration considering I've only worn this once. Now, admittedly, I wore it for a whole day, but like even just after one wear, the fact that this has already happened doesn't really inspire confidence in me with the rest of the shoe. But overall, that would just be my last con for this shoe, creasing toe box. So yeah, 3 pros and 3 cons, always looking for equality. But yeah, overall, I will say it works quite well as a dance shoe. It's just like the durability seems to be the biggest issue with this. And with that, we've come to the end of another video. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think of this Bernard 50s or Bernard 58s or something like that in this black colorway. And if you guys happen to own this exact shoe, what would be your pro and con for this shoe? And if you guys happen to own any other Hush Puppies, just let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Pretty weird shoe to be reviewing on the channel, but we're really kind of straightening things around here. But always just kind of putting out content that's sort of relevant to the channel and just interesting to me. So like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section down below. And if you're into more sneakers, dance, vlogs, even though it's kind of quarantine, consider subscribing to the channel. Until then, I'll catch you guys in another video.